Hello and welcome to Wine Grants, unscripted chat about the Unfunded, the official podcast of the Unfunded List. Of course, I'm Dave Moss, the founder of the Unfunded List of the Moss Family Foundation. With me this week, a good friend, Ryan Derfler. Say hello, Ryan.
Hello, Dave.
Great to have you in the booth, Ryan. As most of my loyal listeners know, I allow my guest to choose their wine, and usually the guest says something like, "Oh, I like red or white," or perhaps maybe they'll be a little bit more specific. They want a red Zinfandel or a Malbec or something. Ryan has been the first guest to ask for Cognac, which technically is wine.
There we go. It's on the fringe. Dave, you know what
wine.
it is? It's just moving back from the West Coast to the East Coast, the Northeast especially. Starting to get cold, and I need something to warm me up.
Yep, it is chilly out there, and I think this will warm us up. This is the first time I've had Cognac since I stole some Cognac from my parents, right? Which I probably shouldn't admit because my parents are like 20% of the people listening right now. Hi, Mom. And again, I'm sorry. I think I took that Cognac by now. I did. I filled it back up with apple juice or something like that.
Yeah.
So now I will, as is our fashion, begin by reading your fairly impressive bio in here. I think this is the first bio I've read that includes the word NASCAR.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it's a proud part of my heritage.
Hey, it's one of the most popular sports around the world. Ryan Derfler is Director of Experience at Geneva Global, an international philanthropic consulting firm. His career at the cross-section of social services, doing good, and entrepreneurship, doing well, includes stints at City Team International and building a social enterprise for the city of Philadelphia. He's orchestrated hundreds of events, including international leadership summits, NASCAR trackside hospitality, a series of hackathons in Silicon Valley, and dozens of other town hall meetings and charity fundraisers. Ryan serves as a storyteller, connector, and activator in the area of hands-on Christianity, that is, living one's faith in practical ways that lead to discipleship. Again, discipleship, probably another word that I haven't found about yet. He maintains a blog that documents miracles and lessons learned chasing the Holy Spirit. He's published over 100 articles and videos and has spoken to numerous academic, corporate, and church groups, such as Comcast, Wells Fargo, the Stanford Faculty Club, Alma Heights Christian School, and St. Timothy's Church in San Jose, California. Ryan was educated at Lebanon Valley College in business, philosophy, and art, including study abroad at the Universi Stranieri in Perugia.
It's good.
Yeah. In Perugia, Italy. He's also taken many postgraduate courses in an array of topics, such as gamification, developing innovative ideas, and human-centered design. He lives in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where he raises his 2 children with his wife, Whitney. He also leads a parallel life as an actor and model, appearing in advertisements around the world for brands such as Ralph Lauren, Bank of America, QVC, and, once again, NASCAR. He also enjoys promoting Philadelphia arts and culture. For more, visit www.ryanderfler.com or Geneva Global. Is it genevaglobal.com or
.com.
genevaglobal.com. Thanks very much for joining us in the booth. You've done a lot of very interesting stuff. Some of it I've never heard of. I'm sure we won't be able to talk about all of this. I think we could have a whole podcast dedicated to your NASCAR-related experiences.
Yeah, philanthropy, Christianity, and Cognac in one booth. Imagine that. So here we are. It's great to be here.
It's a Jew and a Christian and a bottle of Cognac walk into a booth.
Where does it go? That's right. Well, it's great to be here. I've just appreciated the podcast and your work, and I think the Unfunded List is a brilliant idea. As someone who's had a hand in grant writing and granting at Geneva Global in various ways, really appreciate what you're doing here.
Oh, thanks. It's nice to hear that from professionals. I think I really like. I like Doug, who runs Geneva Global, and basically everybody I've met who works there, and I'm sure the people who I haven't met are great too. I like that the organization exists because for so long I think and even for me when I was a baby philanthropist, going along to events with my grandmother, so that they could name a plaque after her or whatnot. She did not have professionals that helped advise her, and I think the idea that she would. If you had suggested that to her, I honestly wish she was around to ask her because I'd like to hear what she would have to think. Yeah. But in her mind, that was money. It wasn't even money that she made. She never made any money. Yeah. She inherited it, and she had a wealthy husband. But that was 100% her decision to give away. Even when I, as a family member, right, who was supposedly doing some of this stuff alongside her, would make suggestions, she didn't want to hear that. And I think it's just generally great that there is a trend in the sector. You guys are a growing company, I think one of the topics we'd be remiss to discuss is that this does seem to be a trend in Silicon Valley, that some of the newer wealth, when they decide to get in philanthropy, don't do what my grandmother did and just assume they know what they're doing, are starting to do what they do in all other aspects of their life. Hire a professional. If you're going to get a divorce, you hire a divorce attorney. You don't try to work your way through that yourself, even if you're a successful attorney in other fields. And I've heard from you and read on your blog some really interesting stories you've had with Silicon Valley and other type philanthropists. And I'd love, and I think some of a lot of people who listen to the podcast are philanthropists themselves, or they're seeking funds. And I think it'll be really edifying for them. Just to hear a little bit about your experience. You've been at Geneva Global for how long now? 8 months, 6 months, something like that?
It's going on 7 months.
So I bet you've had a lot of really interesting experiences there. What's the general conversation like when you talk to someone who's either already doing philanthropy or interested and wants their impact to be stronger and smarter?
Yeah, no, I appreciate all that background. We're the folks who are coming to us, have either tried it on their own at a large scale or with a significant investment, realize that it's a lot harder than it looks. You're looking at complex problems, lots of sectors that touch a specific issue, or they, like you said, they sort of realize that it's well worth the investment to get someone who's done things at scale previously to sort of guide them, or sometimes they just have an idea and they have no idea at all how to bring it to life somewhere in the world, and so they want someone who can be independent, very transparent. And I think that's a trend that I think anyone, whether they're seeking grants or giving grants, can identify with, is the desire to look at the investment and find out what's the ROI or what's the impact. And the reality is that's what we deal with quite a bit. And I think that's not going to go away. People are looking more at, look at impact investing, and it's like, we want to do good, but we want returns, and whether it's a social return that I can quantify or a financial return that I'm going to see, at some point down the road, we're able to help as an independent organization find truth for people. And so that's exciting. Yeah. We're glad that the trend,
finding truth, that's a big goal.
It is, and it's harder than you think, right? Even if you go visit a site, we see quite a bit where those things can sort of be gamed.
Oh yeah, I've gamed site visits.
Yeah. So the reality,
I used to do that for a living.
Yeah, so for programs that we run, like, we have locals in the local language on the ground on staff, and that's how committed we are. If not, in some cases, big programs, academic partners that are independently studying the actual result and the work. So it's a serious thing. There's never been a time, probably, I'm not a historian, but where there's been so much pressure and media attention on philanthropy and scrutiny that people want to share their failures more now and talk about what they've learned. It's part of the culture now to sort of put things out open source, as it is. And the reality is that the more that it goes in that direction, the more that we become a valuable partner.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think it's it's really interesting. It's not a black and white thing. For a long time there was that really people wanted to be able to quantify their impact when they got into philanthropy.
Yeah.
And that is generally good. That's a big step. My grandmother, and I pick on her a lot in the podcast. She's no longer with us, so she can't talk.
I won't.
Back.
Well, then yeah, we better not.
I thought she had impact, right? We made a lot of gifts to libraries and schools, and a lot of people learned as a result of the resources she was able to provide. She had no interest in having that quantified for her. She didn't want any reports that listed numbers or anything. Yeah. And I think that's just something that happened after her. And I think the rush, and that was a very interesting step in philanthropy, right? Let's start quantifying our impact. But it was like a pendulum, perhaps went a little bit too far. And there's definitely some unquantifiable stuff, right? For instance, I remember a plaque dedication at the Newton Public Library. And there was like a little reception for Grandma, and it was a plaque with her and my grandfather's name on it. And it was basically funded part of that Newton Public Library.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be able to count number of library members, right? You'll be able to count the number of books that have been checked out. There's lots of things you'll be able to quantify, right?
That's right.
But someone is going to go to that library and read a book. Who knows? Could be Catcher in the Rye. Could be who knows? Some other book that can be transformative.
It could be Doing Good Great by Doug Balfour, our CEO.
That could be that book.
Shameless plug.
Is that available online?
It is. In fact, anyone can email me. I'll send them a copy.
Great. You feel free to email the Unfunded list. We'll put you in touch, get you a copy of that book. It's a good book. I've read it. But yeah, someone's going to go into that library and have a life-changing experience as a result of the book that they read.
And you're never going to capture that.
You'll never capture it. Yeah, and that's some of the most exciting. You talk about finding truth. I've never heard anyone talk about that in regards to philanthropy. Right? Truth is a big, complicated thing. Right? It's not facts are different than truth. What's the truth about this library? That's an interesting thing to think about. And as a philanthropist, I think you're right. I think they are looking for some truth, some honesty, some real moments, things that aren't numerative, right? That you don't count, you don't list.
We talk a lot about at Geneva Global the head and the heart, and we're not the only, or the art and the science. And
Mm-hmm.
You and I have talked about the Renaissance and sort of the melding of these qualities or perspectives, and certainly the the measuring and evaluation and learning that's happening is all good, right? I mean, since Grandma did that, and in many places, by the way, culturally, we see in the Middle East and different places where they're still quite okay with that. It's a private matter, and still, by and large, the number one advisor to philanthropists is their own peers. Mm-hmm. That's where people go. They whether they're successful or not. But what we're seeing is when you look at wealth creation now, and to get back to your point about my time in Silicon Valley each month, the reality is the folks who are making money now, they're looking to give their money away using some of the same techniques that they use to make that money, which is heavy data. You look at Silicon Valley, you look at the ways that they're projecting their business, the way that they're growing their business, the tools they're using, and the reality is they're looking to use similar tools in the way that they give it. Mm-hmm. And in that regard, that the M&E and L, or measurement, evaluation, learning, it is important. And the coolest thing to me though is this, and I think this is an encouragement to the industry, is this: people seem to be willing to make bigger bets in their lifetime. So there's not this sense that I need to create something that lasts forever or for generations. I want to spend this down, but I want to invest in something that there's a minimum viable product. Again, total Silicon Valley sort of jargon. Something I could test out that could possibly be huge and scale. And I can see what happens and look at the data as it happens and then put more money into it in another round. I mean, you can almost look at venture capital in the way startups are sort of birthed and developed and start to apply that to philanthropy, and it's the same language now. I mean, the folks I'm talking to, that's what they're looking for. They're like, hey, how do I move the needle on on poverty or on homelessness or on education, and something I can test out, see if it works, and then go in with another round. Which is pretty cool. I mean, in a way, because they're also, here's the other thing, they're not afraid of failure. They expect failure. Everybody, in the Valley sort of knows, most things fail. Why is it when you go to a nonprofit or an NGO, in a lot of cases, if you're a 7-figure donor or a large donor, it's always a rosy picture. It's not the real world.
So little tolerance for failure.
It's not the real world. And the folks who've made this money, they're like, I expect failure. It's part of the process. And so in that way, we're kind of excited about that because, there's a certain transparency and a certain truth that comes out. And look, our goal at the end of the day, Geneva Global, is to do philanthropy the best possible way that we can, because we know that when we do, it's going to inspire more people to get in the game, so to speak. And frankly, it's going to expose some of the other mediocre things or downright crappy things that are happening in the world, so that the resources, which are very limited, can get in the right place.
Mm-hmm. And they are, it can often seem like that's what you talk about. You're talking about Silicon Valley billionaires, right? And then you start talking about limited resources. There's a lot of people that might want to roll their eyes at that. But when you're talking about intractable global problems, yes, Silicon Valley does not have enough. Like the amount of money they have might be enough, but they would have to do it like really strategically if they want to solve all the world's problems with the money that they have. Resources are super scarce, and like even huge foundations, Ford Foundation, Gates Foundation, they can't fund everything that they want to.
No.
Every single year they say no to things, right? Which is a big part of the reason why I think why I wanted to start the Unfunded list. Doesn't really seem to be a secondary market for these sorts of things. And again, it can, if you it's not failure when you write a grant proposal and it gets rejected. But in this sector, it can often seem like, well, especially if you're working on something niche and like that's the sometimes, if you're trying, let's say you were trying to eradicate malaria, right? If you can't get funding from Gates, like you're not really working on malaria, right?
Yeah.
And so it can seem like you didn't really break into the set. Like, there's only a handful of like big unicorn type funders for these things, right? And so, but like, and anybody at Gates will tell you, like, just because you got rejected doesn't mean it was a bad program. Anyone at any foundation will tell you that. They reject good programs all the time.
Sure.
And this year, I've done now one cycle of the Unfunded list. I did not get any bad proposals. We only picked 4 to put on the list because, for various reasons, we felt like they were the ones that were going to benefit from being from the recognition on Giving Tuesday the most, right? There are some programs I'm going to try to highlight later that that will try to help out, but none of them were bad ideas, right? A couple of them needed a little bit tweaking. One of them was a really great idea until the ask. It just didn't match up with what they were doing because they're not a professional grant proposal writer; they're a professional problem solver.
Yeah.
And when you're small and you're starting out, you don't necessarily have all of those skills you need or the networking skills you need.
Well, I appreciate your heart, to give feedback in every case, because that is something that is so helpful, is the feedback loop on some of this stuff. Because, at the end of the day, people are passionate, especially younger folks, it seems, millennials, to use that label. Every millennial I talk to, I want to do something that I also feel good about that's going to change the world, right? And so there's a passion there, behind some of these ideas and these programs. And at the end of the day, all right, they put the time and effort into giving you, their best thinking. And it's nice to know that folks are going to get something in return that's, constructive criticism. So I appreciate that.
No, and I think the millennials, I have a diverse evaluation committee. I believe my youngest member is 24, and the oldest member is 72 years old. And it's not my mother is younger than that.
Is it your family, Dave?
No, Matthew Lesko is 72, and we might.
Is he really?
Yeah,
I'm going to guess that with his energy.
He's got a lot of energy for an older dude.
I saw the photos of him.
Yeah, he was right here in this booth.
I know. I'm like honored. And so
he's a great guy. Hello, Matthew.
Hi, Matthew. I couldn't match his wardrobe, right? His attire, but I did wear, and I've never worn these before.
Oh.
But I wore my Wine Grant socks.
That's
fantastic. So we'll have to get a photo of those.
Yeah,
there's a variety that may or may not be. That actually is the bottle.
Leather?
That's the bottle that you bought. So we got lucky there. But we'll put a picture of the socks.
Yeah, we'll get a picture. We'll definitely have
Wine Grant socks.
Definitely have a picture. And I appreciate you wearing those. That's his suits, by the way, custom Armani.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
With the big question mark and everything.
He wears it every day, and he says he has 50 of them.
Well, I'm humbled to be here.
There's a really good Vice documentary.
Matthew and Rachel and former Miss DC. You've really reached the bottom of the barrel here in sort of getting to me. I guess people aren't returning your calls around the holidays or something.
Oh, that has nothing to do with this podcast, I assure you. I think you are one of the first, you're not really a professional would you say you're a professional philanthropist?
It's funny because I go to conferences and stuff, and people come up to me as if I have billions of dollars to give away because Geneva Global manages a lot of people's money philanthropically.
Plus, Geneva's in Switzerland, and
that's right. We just look rich, and the branding and all that. And so we've had, over $1 billion come across our platform as a company, that we've managed. And so people think that I'm just like giving this stuff out. not knowing that everything we do is client-driven, custom boutique work, and it's really helping, a client's vision and, come to life. And so, no, I'm not independently wealthy of the type that would ever be a client of the company that I work for. And yet, I've danced around, as you sort of alluded to.
But when someone asks you, like, what's your profession? What do you say?
Well, I say that I'm a philanthropic consultant. I work for, a company who's doing internationally, really, I think, the best work at scale on the ground, that you can find. Mm-hmm. And then there's
you say you're a professional. I mean, maybe you're not a professional philanthropist consultant.
Correct.
Consultant to philanthropist.
That's right.
Although I assume you give in your own.
I do.
Oh
yeah. Then there, to me, it's always a nuanced answer depending on who I'm talking to, because there's the faith piece, which I'm pretty open about, and that means that we tithe, my wife and I. That's really important to us to give as much as we possibly can.
Is that 10? You give 10% of your.
We
income?
do. Yeah, we give 10% and more, and hopefully it'll grow from there. But also, I
always felt like as much as you can afford to give is the number.
Yeah. I mean, we do. Yeah, we try, and then we also we try to like really take ownership of our giving. So it's not like write a check to the church or something, which we do that. But then we also say we want to see people face to face. We want to interact. So we'll give to the homeless ourselves if we can. We'll target gift cards or because you got to put a face to this stuff. At the end of the day, I think and this applies. It's like this all becomes sort of theory in a way if you're not ever facing people yourself and getting to know the stories behind people, looking them in the eye and connecting on a human level. So that's huge for me and my wife and our family. Professionally, there's also the modeling and acting stuff. I can't believe it said on there globally or worldwide. You see me go.
NASCAR is an international phenomenon.
Yeah.
Were you in a NASCAR? Tell me about the NASCAR modeling you did.
I will. Well, I was in NASCAR magazine. Actually, that was just last month. Yeah.
I assume probably a lot of people read that.
Actually, they do.
Yeah,
I'm the guy. I'm on the cover,
bullshit.
and I'm like.
Well, they were
screaming.
partners with the "It's on Us" campaign that I did with the White House.
I'll send you.
And when we would get the the impression reports and stuff,
it was huge.
Everybody else at the table would be like, "There's no way this many people watch NASCAR."
It's a well-run.
I'm from
sport.
Maine, so I know full well that it's a really big deal. Like a lot of people watch it. It is some popular stuff. I don't get it. But
I worked for a Fortune 500 company as an event planner, and we sponsored a NASCAR team, and I ran the trackside hospitality. So we had a box, and we would do stuff for our biggest clients. And for 3 years, I did that. I was blown away at how well run that sport is. I mean, and I was not a fan.
Big business.
And just in those 3 years, I became a fan because when you get people in a box drinking beer with a colored hat on, rooting for a car going around a track, it catches on, man. I don't know how else to explain it. And then you win once in a while. Your guy wins, the race, and it's like champagne is getting sprayed everywhere, and everyone's having a fun time. So, and not to mention the fact that a football game, you might tailgate for a day. NASCAR, they tailgate for a week.
Yep.
Before the race, like it's a lifestyle, So I mean, they've
and that part I did understand.
They're onto something.
That was fun.
Yeah. So.
And it's it kind of continues in a very long tradition of the very similar to horse racing.
If you didn't have the suit, you could be a NASCAR guy, and your hair wasn't so coiffed.
They got up near. I'm from Waterville, Maine, and they got Unity Raceway or Speedway or something nearby.
All right.
And it's not quite NASCAR, but I'd go watch. The best thing they ever had there was the demolition derby.
Oh, those are
These
cool.
guys would just show up with their old beater, just cars they don't care about anymore, and
that's fun.
Everybody would just completely
last
ruin
guy
their
running,
car.
yeah.
I mean, you got to blow off steam somehow. As I mentioned earlier, never had cognac, and I wasn't sure I liked it at first. I think I might like this. This may be a new expensive habit that I've developed.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it starts cooling off, and you basically, it's a little warm up, little nip during the winter time if it's not scotch or something. I'm glad you like it. This bottle here with all the metal on it, I'm sure they thought you were some kind of gangster when you walked in, like a Jewish gangster, coming in to buy this.
Well, they have those, you know.
I know, yeah.
The thing is we own Hollywood, so we made it seem like it was just Italians.
Yeah. That's right.
Like, no.
You guys can take Vegas. We'll take Hollywood.
There was a guy named, what was his name? Arthur Anastasia. And he ran a company called Murder Incorporated.
Really?
And guess what they
discreet.
did? Guess what they did? It was all just Jewish hitmen. Those were some badass Jews. And we still have them. They probably all moved to Israel.
Well, since we're friends, I don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. All right, fantastic. As you've gone about, traipsed around Silicon Valley, and again, you've written some really cool blogs about some of your experiences and meetings there and stuff that people should look up.
Thank you.
What would you say is the most valuable, like, for the people who end up working with Geneva Global or some sort of similar firm? Like, what's the most valuable thing you're doing for them? Out of all, obviously you make some of the processes easier for them, so administration and stuff. But like, what's the one single thing that like is your big selling point?
When you look at philanthropy and what it takes to move the needle on these very complex issues, okay, people talk about top down, bottom up, grass, and the reality is what we've found over time is it actually requires top down, bottom up, both and so you got in our situation, you look at international development programs, there's community-based organizations. These are the people who are on the ground, sometimes relatively small organizations that are relatively siloed. When you look at all the people who touch an issue, trafficking, for example, it's policing, it's immigration, it's safe houses, it's counselors, it's all of these grassroots, or they all have their piece on it. And then the top down, you've got government, you've got the advocacy work. For example, in India, for us, it was just a matter of raising awareness, at a high level, that trafficking wasn't just sex trafficking. That frankly, a lot of it's labor. It's guys that are signing up for one job and then they're getting carted off and put on a fishing boat for months at a time, and when you work out the wages, they're slaves, and it's very risky. A lot of guys are not coming home. They're being killed on the job, right? So it's and people weren't aware. Like, the sex trafficking is sexy, right? I mean, so it kind of sells, and you hear a lot about it. But this labor stuff, so
and that's something that happens and sex trafficking happens in this country too. But
sure,
we have
labor
we have a big migrant labor problem.
Migrant labor, right? Hired help. So people, when they get into these issues, they start to realize, wow, there's a lot of angles on this stuff, and they're frankly oftentimes in way over their head. So we have essentially 8 pillars of philanthropy where you look at the unintended consequences of sometimes doing things, right? Dumping a bunch of money in an area can mess up a market, for example. And so what we've got is a team that is incredibly adept and astute observers of situations. We get entrenched on the ground, and we're able to craft these programs that are cross-sector using blended capital, so all the different financial tools at your disposal. Grants, great, that's bread and butter. But what about loans and lending clubs and bonds and all the other things that you can do nowadays? And then we look at, concentrated impact. People try to bite off these big chunks like a country or something. We try to focus in as tight as we possibly can. And this is kind of borrowing from Silicon Valley, where it's like, eBay started out just as a website to trade for coin collectors, or Uber started out with a very small fleet of cars, right? So you start as tiny as you can get.
That's very
get that right, and then iterate and grow from there. So we do that. And then what's really unique to us is that people will fund a program for a year, 2 years, 3 years. We want to do 10-year programs. So we encourage people. People get freaked out.
When you're solving the problems that you guys are going after, why would you think
there's no way. Social change is hard. There's problems. There's corruption. And we're used to dealing with that. So we're like a trusted advisor that walk on this journey with people. When things go sour, we tell people our goal is complete transparency. We were founded by investment bankers who expected to fail. They wanted transparency. They wanted the custom research and analysis. And so that's our mentality. So That's what we bring to the table. And people, when they find out about us, they're like, I didn't even know this existed. You know, there's really nobody who blends that kind of consulting and expertise with actually running things on the ground. A lot of great consultants that will give you a great strategy, but if you want a partner who's going to walk with you philanthropically, it's hard to make a case that there's anybody else besides us.
There's I had a friend of mine once used to say there's 15 strategic planners for every strategic implementer. Like actually being like and I think that's one of the more impressive things about you guys is it's we're gonna go work on this program in this country and we have people there.
We're there.
And we're there already. That's huge.
And look, whether people decide, if they're philanthropists, whether they decide to use us or somebody else or whatever their advice mechanism would be, I would say, look, think about philanthropy like you do your business and say, if I'm going to start a company, I want to find someone who works in that industry, who has scaled something and had success in that space, who knows the landscape. I mean, those are important things. It's funny, you think about those in business, right? You ever watch Shark Tank? They usually pick the guy who's got the most relevant background. And yet philanthropy, for some reason, people will go and trust their friend who's done something in disease when they want to do something in whatever, a different sector altogether. And so the cool thing is it's all getting professionalized. Our business is growing really quickly. I mean, the Inc. list of fastest growing private companies. So we're loving it. We're having a great time. Love to see what you're doing. And
but yeah, I would say you guys are and you gave me some of the numbers earlier. I think you're looking for people who have hundreds of millions of dollars and who are giving millions away a year. Right, obviously, that's a very small number of folks, but almost all Americans are philanthropic in some way.
Oh yeah.
Someone who isn't giving millions of dollars away, what should they be doing to think smarter about their philanthropy? Obviously, they should be looking at the unfunded list on those programs, getting those great unfunded projects that they can support. But what else should they be doing?
Yeah, I mean, there's an increasing number of tools out there to help you look at 990s. I mean, try to make sense of it. What most people are already doing these things. I would say actually just give. I mean, really just give. Don't be afraid of making some mistakes with your philanthropy. It's why like Zuckerberg, everyone's kind of criticizing him now, but I'm like, you got to admire the guy because he just keeps giving. He's going to make mistakes.
He dove right into philanthropy.
He's trying things out.
Made some mistakes.
Yeah, and you're going to make mistakes. Realize that. You can't. Why be so terribly critical that you don't give? I think giving is fundamentally, religious or not, people realize like it's better to give. It's best to give, like just give, so find ways to do it for yourself, whether it's, at a small level, funding a campaign for a friend that you see on Facebook or, something that is a personal passion of yours. I mean, any of us get probably a dozen requests a year for a friend. Yep. You know what? You're gonna when you fund a friend's work, like you're automatically gonna become like they're gonna love you a little bit more, right? We all have those things. So if you don't know what you want to do,
I do a lot of dinner parties.
Yeah. If you don't know what you want to do, just find someone who's got a passion and support them until you do figure it out.
Outstanding. I want to thank you very much for stopping by the booth. We will probably have you back for season 3.
Cool.
And thanks very much for the work you do with Geneva Global. Hopefully, the Unfunded List and Geneva Global will be friends for a long time.
For sure.
I think we have, I think we see a sector that is doing good all over the world, but has room for improvement, and just want to be a part of that. And look forward to being in not just this booth, but many other booths with you.
That's right, man. My pleasure. The booths, that thing could go.
I think we met at a restaurant. You sat down at a booth.
Actually, you're right. It was a steakhouse in New York City. We had a dinner at a booth. That's right. Well, yeah, it's my pleasure, Dave, and just again, appreciate what you're doing and your heart in this endeavor.
Oh, thanks.
Know it's going to be successful, and my pleasure to be here.
And I'll say, even though we are of different faiths, they are of the same origin. And I do,
right.
And I do like it. I think a lot of people, especially in the older generation, don't think of the younger folks as having faith or being as righteous as they are.
That's right.
I think they're wrong. I think and it's and especially like so it's Hanukkah this week, which is the main reason why I wear my yarmulke, but I also wear it because I want people to know this is something that is important to me, and you have a whole blog dedicated, and you're out there letting people know, and I'm sure it's something that if you're like me, like people make fun of the little beanie I'm wearing sometimes, right?
Really?
And yeah. I don't and I could care
That's right.
absolutely less about that.
It makes it no, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think that just like philanthropy in our own way, we're sort of changing religion a bit. Even though it's like this timeless thing with timeless truth, I think what's happened
they've been tithing for a long time too.
Yeah. And we've sort of seen where, maybe the church or the synagogue or, when we look at the truths that exist there and the way that it's sort of carried out sort of practically, we sort of realize that, I think millennials, everyone would sort of agree, if nothing else, they're sort of authentic and they really do want to make a difference. And I think we're expressing that in our faith in new ways. And I think the church the synagogue is starting to wake up to that and say, maybe there's something to this, because Pew and others come out with these studies and say it's on the decline. And yet I see a lot of folks who say, I do believe in something bigger, but it doesn't necessarily look like what I see out there.
It's somewhat a metrics problem, right? Like, if you count like synagogue or church attendance, like maybe it is.
That's right. It's a bad metric.
I haven't been to synagogue in a long time.
It's a bad metric.
I'm wearing a kippah right now. I'm going to light a menorah candle.
There you go.
Right.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm not necessarily going to go.
Another case where the metric doesn't get at the exact.
And what would happen if I went to synagogue? I'll tell you what would happen. An old man would talk at me.
Yeah, there you go.
I believe that's probably what happened. It's been a while since I've been to church, but I think basically the same thing happens there, and at a mosque too. I've never actually had the pleasure to go to a mosque.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Dave. Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks very much for coming by. As always, I want to thank the Lookout DC, which is a beautiful co-working community for filmmakers. I want to thank my guest Ryan Derfler and Geneva Global for loaning him to us for the afternoon. Thank you, everybody at home, for listening. Hi, Mom. And good luck with your funding.